This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on National Labour Conference and its significance. The participants are Shankar Agarwal, former Labour Secretary, and Shishir Sinha, journalist.
Mr. Agarwal, we have heard what the Prime Minister has said about the utilization of building and construction workers cess fund. What is the significance of this particular, what you can call it as a collaborative approach to be adopted by the state government with center?
See, for the construction workers, there is a cess called this worker cess. And this is being controlled by the state government. And collectively, there must be about 30,000-40,000 crores of rupees in this kind of a fund across the country. However, in many places, this fund is being misutilized, if I can say so, that instead of using it for the welfare of workers, it is being used for many other purposes which do not fall under the category of workers' welfare. In many states, it was observed that it was being utilized for political purposes as well. And that's why this matter was being looked into by the Supreme Court also. And Supreme Court had given very clear directives that the funds had to be monitored by the Government of India, though it will be controlled by the state government, so that misutilization can be checked. And once we do that, there is a huge amount of money which can be utilized for the actual welfare of the construction workers.
Sir, one problem what we have observed that the preparation of data in many states, if we talk about the database for the construction workers, that's not readily available. Do you think that this is also one of the issue why the fund has not been used properly?
Absolutely. Unless you have got data, unless you have got information, how are you going to make use of that data? Suppose a worker has come from Jhansi to Delhi and then he works here for 3 months, 4 months and he goes back. How are you going to track him or her for the welfare activity? So unless you create a database which is basically on an IT platform, and once you do that, wherever he or she is, you can track him or her and the benefits can be accrued to him or her. Secondly, not only that, once the database is prepared, a whole lot of other schemes can also be tagged to that database and the worker can make use of the benefits of other schemes as well.
Okay. Sir, various portals are also there for the registration of workers in various fields, and also it is available for the people who are engaged in building and construction activities. Where are the issues why the building or the construction people or the developers, they are not coming forward and putting the data? What kind of measures should be taken to prompt them to come and get the workers' names registered?
I wouldn't say that the workers are not interested in coming forward to register themselves. And as per my information, large number of workers have registered themselves with Shram portal. However, because as I said a little earlier, many of these workers are basically migratory in nature. As I gave you the example of a worker coming say from Jhansi to Delhi. He works there for 3-4 months and then he goes back. So many times it becomes very difficult for a laborer or the construction worker to come forward and to get himself or herself registered. So what we can do, as you are asking me, what is the solution? It should be a continuous updation kind of a thing. Wherever possible, the data can be captured, and since it is on an IT platform, it does not make any difference whether the data is being captured in Delhi and thereafter all the data with unique Aadhaar.
Sir, I agree with you that the workers, it's not possible or it's not a good idea to what you can say rules and regulations for the worker. My question was what should be done for the employer? They should come forward and get the name of workers registered. What kind of measures you suggest for them?
You see, employers naturally would not like to get this data because once they capture data and once they give information about the employment being given to the construction worker, they are liable for many other things like PF, ESIC and even the cess, the worker cess. Naturally, all these employers, they want to evade this kind of a burden on them. They call it burden because that means an extra cash outgo. But if they look into the long run, once they are able to take care of the workers will take advantage of that and workers will work willingly and their productivity will be high. And this is what even the Honorable Prime Minister has said, which is said that with the improved labor law, you can have better prosperity. And that is what is going to happen. All over the world, if you see, whenever the workers have been taken care of in terms of social security, in terms of wages, in terms of other things, their productivity has gone up.
Sir, now coming to the issue of labor codes, we all know that 4 labor codes are ready and now we are waiting for the rules to be formulated by the state. and then the implementation can take place. What are the ways, what are the issues which are still to be resolved in implementation of these codes, sir?
You see, if you look rather deeply, you will find that all these labor laws, which have been now converted into these 4 labor codes, are extremely pragmatic, and idea is to take care of the welfare of the person. The only problem is that in many state governments, they have got a different viewpoint on certain issues related to labor. And moreover, labor topic is little politicized also. And that's why, because of our competitive political scenario, people do take or do exploit such sentiments. But I feel that once all these state governments come on the common platform, it will be for the benefit of the entire country. And this will also accrue benefit to the state governments and ultimately to each and every worker of this country.
And how do you see the role of these kind of labor conferences in implementation of these kind of reforms?
I would say it is an excellent initiative. In democracy, dialogue is the only way to sort out our differences. When we meet in these conferences, obviously we can iron out. It gives us an opportunity to iron out our differences and we move forward. There is no other alternative, and this is the best way to sort out our differences.
The Prime Minister highlighted the need for flexible workplace, work from home ecosystem, flexi work hours, amidst the rising gig and platform economy. How do you see this statement?
There is no doubt that under new circumstances, when large number of people are working on IT platforms and in the area of IT and new technology, it is very necessary that we give flexibility to the worker, and especially to the women workers. Many women are unable to join the workforce only because they have got responsibility towards their families as well. And if we put these kinds of restrictions, then obviously they will get discouraged to join the work. On the other hand, now technology has enabled them to work from home. It's an excellent idea. So we must give them flexibility to work wherever they are, whether men or women, so that the productivity would improve, and it will create employment opportunities not only in metros but in every nook and corner of the country.
There are two views emerging. One view is that we should not continue now work from home thing, and the another view is that it should be continuous because it is not affecting the efficiency. After the Prime Minister's statement, what do you have to say on this particular issue? Which side you will take?
No, I'll say that there must be flexibility to the workers. The choice should be given to them. However, care should be taken that this is not being misutilized. You must have come across a word called moonshining. A lot of people today, what they are doing, they are taking up 3, 4, 5 jobs. That's not required. But as long as he or she has made a declaration to the original organization that yes, he is taking another job, it's fine. But it should not be done clandestinely, one, and it should not be against the ethics and the conduct. And once you give them flexibility, and maybe you can ask them to come to office once a week or once in 15 days or 4 days in a month, that is good enough.
Okay. Sir, the other issue is about the gig workers. We have seen there are some schemes. We have also seen the government is talking about more and more welfare schemes for the gig workers. But still the problems are there, and there have been demand to bring something more. What more can be done for these kind of workers? Because now these workers are becoming very, very important part of the entire supply chain management.
You see, the gig worker, there is little blurred lines who exactly is the employee. So that becomes little difficult, number one. Many a time they work for a particular service because they are only delivering services. They are not actually, in the conventional sense, they are not the worker. So we had to find out new ways and means of defining these workers. Ultimate idea is that whether he is a gig worker or a non-gig worker, his rights should be protected and he or she should be given a fair treatment as far as employment is concerned. And that means minimum wages, the job security, to some kind of a job security, some kind of a social security, and then the protection against hazard.
Sir, coming back to earlier question about the registration on Shram portals, we are seeing very good number of workers getting registered on the Shram portal. What is the one particular thing which are prompting them to get registered on the Shram portal and taking advantage of government schemes? So what are your view on that?
These workers may not be very intelligent or educated, but they are extremely wise. If they know and if they realize that by registering on the Shram portal, they are going to get benefited, surely they'll do that. You see, mobile phones. Everybody is using mobile phones because they understand the value of a mobile phone. Similarly, you look into Aadhaar card. Everybody has got an Aadhaar card because they understand the value of carrying an Aadhaar card. Similarly, for the election registration, everybody has got an electoral card because they understand the value of being a registered elector. So these people may not be so much educated, but they understand what is good for them, what is bad for them. And once we popularize and once we create awareness about the Shram portal, surely they'll go to the Shram portal, get themselves registered so that they can get rightful their rights and protections and benefits.
Okay. The Prime Minister also talked about preparing vision for year 2047 in Amrit Kal, that for the next 25 years. What are the 2-3 things which you feel very important to include in the vision for the next 25 years, especially when we are talking about achieving the developed nation status by 2047?
I would say only 2 things. One, there should be at least 50% workers from the women category. And secondly, the employment has to be respectful and meaningful. That means what? That every worker, whether in formal sector, informal sector, wherever, these are only artificial categorization. Every worker must have the protection of social security. That means in times of crisis, in terms of health problems, in terms of old age, they must get what is due to them so that they can live with dignity and self-respect.
Okay. And when we talk about more and more participation, women in the total labor force, what more can be done for these people to come forward and employ more and more women? If you have 2-3 ideas for that.
Number one is education. We got to give meaningful and good quality education to our girls and women. Number one. Number two, in all workplaces, we have to create good quality infrastructure for their welfare. That means good quality toilets, good quality cafeterias and things like that. And third, we must ensure they are not being harassed. That means we got to have appropriate rules and regulation and laws so that they are 100% safe and secure and nobody is harassing them. Nobody is creating any problem in their work.
Another issue is about the more and more, when we talk about the labor force, there are very limited number of labor which or what you can call it as a worker who gets a regular salary. Maximum number of people, they get very irregular salary, no monthly kind of thing. So do you think that some kind of social arrangement, of course we have some schemes like Pradhan Mantri Bima Suraksha Yojana or Atal Pension Yojana or even Shram Mandhani scheme, but still do you think that there should be something more for these kind of labor, because that number is very high, and if I can recall that just 22% of our labor force gets a regular salary, that means 78% are not getting. So how to make life much better for these 78%? What are the 2 things which you think should be done by the government?
You see, in the new economic order, if we expect that every worker would get a regular salary, I don't think we will be on the right track. Idea should be whether he or she is getting a regular salary or not, but he or she must get enough money in a month so that he can survive, and that should be more than the minimum wage. So we must suppose a worker is getting only 10 days wages in a month. So we must create a mechanism so that in the entire month, he or she gets the minimum monthly wages, and that can be done. And all over the world, this is being done. Even today, as you have said, in case of ESIC, if somebody is not getting wages for the entire month, something can be given from the fund. And that we had to create a new mechanism. But we have to ensure that it is not being done purposely. When somebody is not assenting himself or herself purpose. As long as a person or a worker is willing to work and he is not being given a job, like in case of Manrega, that can be done and that should be done for these workers.
Okay. Mr. Agrawal, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
You are listening to a discussion on National Labour Conference and its significance. The participants were Shankar Agarwal, former Labour Secretary, and Shishir Sinha, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsttalks@gmail.com.